Welcome to the Manifestation and Money podcast, Kiri.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so pumped.
I'm pumped too. I would love for you to share with the guests who you are and what your story is.
Hi, everyone. I am Kiri Mohan, and I am a business coach for service providers. So that can be freelancers, consultants, anyone who provides a service, not a product, to people. And I help them through multiple programs that I have, private coaching and also group coaching and a few other things. That is who I am. And I'm here today to talk manifestation and money. I am ready.
Fun. And I was excited to have you on, especially today, because outside in my world, we're dealing with crazy smoke from forest fires around here. I'm thinking from a job world, how many people today who are either in those active fire areas who
Mm.
are struggling with getting themselves to work, especially if they have to work outside in this kind of weather, and who are possibly struggling income wise this week due to the fires. In a freelance world, I feel like there's so much more potential there. Let's hear in your words. What are some freelance type jobs that are out there today in 2025?
Yeah. So when I say freelance, I really just mean the online world of freelancers because the technical definition is actually your plumber's a freelancer. But we're talking about people who are in the online world, work online, and run an online business. For that type of freelancer, you can take the skills that you had, and I work with a multitude like social media managers, marketing strategists, copywriters, website designers, graphic designers, virtual assistants. You take your skills basically and you go and try to get clients online. And when you get clients, you can choose how much to charge them. And if they agree, then you move forward. You're basically running your own business with your own clients. No one's handing you a job, right? That's the difference between an actual job that you're going to. You applied for it, you went through an interview process. Maybe you were able to negotiate a little bit, but it was probably pretty set within plus or minus $5,000 to $10,000, right? And then you go into the job and you get paid a steady paycheck every 2 weeks, every month, however it's set up. But you really are handed a lot by your employer. And in the United States, you get health insurance as well. As a freelancer, that's all on you. You are the one that is going out there trying to find jobs. You often have more than one client. You can, depending on your work, sometimes people have 10, 15 clients at a time. Some people might have only 5 to 7 clients at a time, right? You find your own clients, you're able to negotiate rates with them. You have to sell yourself, kind of like the same as an interview process, but there's almost more on the line, I think, sometimes as a freelancer, as you're in charge of your income. But then you have the potential to make so much money because you have multiple clients and you can keep increasing rates and you can provide benefits and referral programs and all kinds of different ways to increase your income, which is quite amazing. And like we mentioned off air, you're controlling it. You're controlling your destiny and how much you're working and how much money you're making. And that can be really gratifying for a lot of people. It was for me. And I still love the idea. I cannot imagine going back to an employer. I could. If
Mhm.
something happened, I could,
Right.
but I can't imagine it. It would be hard for me, I think, after so long running my own business.
Yeah. So let's dig back into your story there. So where did you come from and how did you shift into this world that you're in now of helping freelancers?
Yeah. I mean, how far back do you want to go?
Well, how far do you want to go?
Well, I did something totally unrelated in college. I went to college, earth science with a special focus in meteorology. My plan was to actually be a weather girl on TV, and I got a lot of internships. And the pay is just not good. When I started getting job offers, you start in the middle of nowhere because you have to practice with no audience. And I was married at the time, and I'd have to take my husband where there was just no jobs really for him. And after thinking about it and having crises and crying, I was like, you know what? I don't think I want to do this. So what can I do? And I kept thinking about, okay, what are my strengths? And I was thinking I'm really, really good at organizing. Okay. So then I started looking into that field. I said wedding planning, executive assistant, professional organizer, business analyst, stuff like that. And then I ended up applying for an executive assistant role. And I did really, really well. But I was always bored. I was always bored. It just felt like it's a hard job, but I was very good at it. And so I just felt like I was always hitting the ceiling and just, okay, I'm gonna find another job because it's just like not enough for me, basically. And while I was looking around for another job, I decided to see if there's any work from home jobs. And That was way pre-COVID, and there was not, but I stumbled upon freelancing and I was like, oh, this is interesting. What's this? So then I started trying a bunch of different freelance like I did copywriting, newsletter marketing, I did social media management, I did BA work, I did customer service, customer support, whatever that is. Everything you could think of that I knew I had some small chance of being able to do it, I did it. While this was going on, I started having a lot of pregnancy issues and I was forced to be in the hospital a lot. I had 2 failed pregnancies. And my work environment just wasn't supportive. And it got to the point that the doctor said, we don't know what your future is going to look like. We don't know if you're going to be able to have a child. You should be ready for more appointments and more. And I just thought, oh my God, I just like, this is so much lying and, you know, trying to get at just not supportive. Even though I told HR what was going on, I didn't feel comfortable talking to my managers about it. And I just felt trapped and unsupported and just I can't be here. And at that time, I was just looking at the freelancing as a side hustle, bring in extra money every month for us. I said, what if I could take that full time? So I started looking into doing it full time. And I thought, what's the easiest path to the money? Well, I'm an executive assistant now. I'll just try to freelance as an executive assistant. Everything out there was like, it is so hard to be a freelance executive assistant because executive assistants are required to be online 8 to 5. They're required to get the mail for their boss, like all these devil wears Prada things. And I thought to myself, I'm going to try to make it work because I have the experience. I'm going to try to make it work. And I was able to make it work. I started marketing myself. I worked every day in the morning and in the evening when I came back from work. I became obsessed. And through that, I was manifesting accidentally without realizing it. I started embodying it. When people asked what I didn't even mention what I was. I said, I'm a freelancer. And when they asked for more information, I said, oh, I freelance as an executive assistant, but I have skills in social media and copywriting and all these things. And people would be like, oh, you know what? I know someone who needs that. And I just started every day I would get up and I would say, I'm a freelancer and I no longer report to anyone. I didn't even know what manifestation was. I can't even explain to you. I did not know, but I did it. And then, of course, I had to take action as well. But I would say from the moment I started marketing my business, which was sometime in August of 2014, and I quit my job in July of 2015, the next year. And so that was 11 months really of being able to put everything into it and then quit my job. That is the long story.
It's funny how oftentimes people get into manifestation and using techniques that work for them. And then after they realize, oh, that was manifestation. I was doing the thing without even realizing I was doing the thing.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating. Where in there do you feel like the traction really got going? Or was it out of the gate? Like it was less than a year?
It was
time
11
period?
months.
11 months.
No. I mean, you know what? I did get a lot of traction in the beginning. And then I just had a pause where no one was biting and nothing I was doing was working. And I remember it was about from December through maybe April or May. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I have a few clients, but not near enough to be able to quit my job. Do I want to keep this as a side hustle or do I quit and just continue working? And I just remember I had read a lot of articles through my research of people saying, just keep going, just keep going. Eventually it's going to work if you just keep at it and you keep trying different things. And so I did, and I kept at it. But I remember having in March, I don't know why I remember March, but I remember saying, am I going to continue? Should I continue? This is getting really, really hard. There's no one coming after my business. Like no one wants to work with me. And I had high rates, even starting out. A lot of people start low. I knew in my area where I lived, I had to have high rates. So that also was a big barrier. But I eventually figured out what I teach my students now, I call it the profit pathway, but a way to step away from hourly pricing and move to like packages without any mention of hours. And as I started to experiment with that and different methods of gaining clients, like trial runs, I realized, a lot of clients were hesitant at my prices. So I'd say like, oh, how about a 30-day trial run? And they were more likely to bite at that. I just tried lots of different methods. And then before you knew it, by May, I had gotten 2 new clients and that enabled me to quit my full-time job.
Let's dig into that a little bit right there, because that's one of the things you're working with your freelance clients now, right? Is probably the mindset on setting their prices and elevating their prices, because especially if you're coming out of the job world where someone else was essentially dictating your paycheck.
Yeah.
How does somebody embody charging what they're worth?
Yeah. So one of the first things I do in my group program is I set up a one-on-one. So someone joins, we set up a like personal one-on-one onboarding call and we just dig deep into their pricing and what they're offering. A lot of times people want to charge more and the issue is that they're not very focused. Their pricing is kind of all over the place or they provide too much for one price when a client might not need all of that or might not even want it. So we kind of look back at data. What have you been charging hourly? What's the most you ever charge someone? What's the minimum you want to charge someone now? What are the services that you are offering in that? And it's a lot of tweaking and restructuring. And then they look at it and they say, oh, yeah, I could totally do that. I could sell myself at that. That makes way more sense because we go from someone maybe they might be offering something way more integrated into the company now, or something with a lot more check-ins or a lot more high touch service. And then they say, oh, yeah, that's why I would charge more for that. I get that. And in terms of mindset, I think a lot of it actually where my students struggle the most are on the boundaries. Because if they're coming from a more corporate environment, they're working. I do it too. I look at the time and I'm like, oh, it's 1:20. I still have another 4 hours to work. It's like, what? Like, you can't, those habits die really hard. So I
Mhm.
work with them on how to figure out what kind of clients they can take on, how many hours they're going to be, so that my goal for them is to work 25 hours a week or less and make over six figures. And so I push them through the boundaries and the contracts, the rush fees, their pricing structure, how many clients they can take on at different levels of their services. And eventually we're able to get to them to a point where they're gradually raising their prices and working less.
That's fascinating because that's the goal. How do you have that time freedom at the end of the day? I think people
Yeah.
don't, we get so focused on the dollars, but it's the time freedom. It's what can you do
Yeah.
with those dollars once you have them in your free time that you're going to go do. So, in say today's 2025 market, you're in the United States. What do you feel is kind of the average that your coaching based clients are able to charge as a freelancer?
Oh, it depends. It really depends. Depends on what you offer, right? I have some marketing people who probably veer more towards $3,000 or $6,000 a month. I have some EAs in my because of my background, some EA contacts, and I have one woman who's just killing it. She does like anywhere $6,000 to $8,000 a month with a notoriously very low paying freelance role. People do not want to pay a lot for assistance in the freelance world. I had a website designer, so she was project based, but she was able to raise her price from 200 an hour to like $2,000 a website minimum,
Mm.
right? So these people are making big jumps. I have a client right now who was working $40 an hour. She was able to triple her income and surpass her corporate salary with what she was doing. And it's really just strategic pricing and making sure that they're following like this framework that I have, and it makes it a lot easier. But yeah, they're all over the place. I would love to have someone, Michael, have someone who has $10,000 months, right? Like
Right.
from one
Yeah.
client. Because you can get to $10,000 a month and it's honestly not that hard. But says me. I know. It is really hard for some people because it takes a lot of like mindset work, as you were saying. But
Mhm.
my goal, I would love to see one of my students charge 10,000 bucks a month. That would be really cool.
That'd be one of the ultimate coaching wins, right?
Yeah,
See
coaching one
that
for sure. For sure.
amount of success. Using the website person as an example, who was charging $200 an hour, and then now they're charging based on their completed project. So they're getting experienced in what they can do. So that it's the quality of what they're doing that they're selling almost the end game instead of how much time it's taking them to create that end game.
Yeah, we never talk about how much time it's taking. I always tell people don't do that because then they're going to bring out the calculator. And that's the last thing you want is them
Mhm.
bringing out the calculator because then something's going to happen where they say, what? Like uh, 350 an hour for this? Right. And I've done that too. Right.
Yeah.
I interviewed a coach once and they said $10,000 for 3 months and it's going to be a meeting every week or something. And I was like, wait. 1 hour meeting every week and take out the calculator. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't afford that. What? Even though that's so silly and they know it is, I always tell them, like, just don't even. And like a lot of clients come to me and they say, oh, I do packages already. I say, it's this much money for 6 hours in the package. I'm like, no, even if you say up to 6 hours, they're still taking out their calculator. There's still a way to calculate an
Right.
hourly rate, and we don't want to do that. It's a big no no.
Yeah, that's a valid point there. And so switching into you here, how do you use manifestation in the current business that you've been building out for yourself?
Oh, I'm so excited you asked that. So I'm trying something new. I almost feel like I shouldn't be talking about it because it's so new, but I go through waves with manifestation, right? Because I think sometimes I do it by accident and it goes really well. And then sometimes I'll try to really purposefully do it, but you can feel something's off, right? Something's not aligned, something your body's not feeling it, or your soul, whatever's happening, there's like some kind of obstruction, right? It's just not working. And I've been in a down wave probably for the past since like last October or November. I'm like, what? And I've been seeing a lot about like the writing. I tried it last year, but it was like writing something 6 times a day, like 3 times a day or something like that. Do you remember that? Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about with that technique? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I got really into that. I was trying it, but it just couldn't get it to work. And just in the past 3 or 4 weeks, I decided to just start. This all started with a mindset exercise I was working on with a coach. And I was having a mind block around my intelligence and she's trying to get me to say, I am brilliant, right? And with no hesitation. So I just started writing it. And then I started believing it because I was writing it. And every morning when I sit down, that's the first thing I do at my desk is I write that. But then I started thinking, well, I'm just going to keep writing. So every morning now, when I sit down at my desk, I have, let's see, do you want me to read you what I have this morning?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So this is this morning. It's like this one's long because it just kept going and it felt right. But there are a few things in here that have been working, which is crazy. So I say, I am magical. Magical events and moments come to me through my power. Clients sign on weekly to my coaching practice. My coaching helps and supports people bring their best life forward, which gives me so much joy. Money flows in abundance to our lives. My income supports our family easily, allowing us every desire should we wish it. And blah, 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 on and on and on. So what's important here is I started out just being like, I am brilliant, I am magical. And then I went into clients come to my coaching practice weekly. I've been writing this every day. And in the past 3 or 4 weeks, I have had clients coming weekly, like sometimes more than once a week, but once a week minimum, to the point that this past last Thursday, I said, oh my goodness, what's going to happen next week? Who's going to come next week? This is so much fun. But I also realized last week that I wasn't signing people at the rate, but they were coming, but I wasn't signing as quickly. Like people would be like, okay, give me a few more weeks to think about it. Or can we check back in August or whatever the excuse was? And I thought, no, let me change this. So just in the past, what is it, Wednesday, 3 days, I've been saying clients sign on to my coaching programs weekly. So I don't know. It's just been 3 days, but we're going to see. But it's crazy. Yesterday, I had 2 people reach out in the same day. And I was like, oh, I haven't had calls with them yet. But I couldn't figure out how to make the writing work for me. And I think just doing this like opening almost of my aura or soul or whatever, and just writing what feels in the moment has shifted something.
Yeah.
And you know what? Last fall, when I was doing manifesting I had just launched my group program and I was manifesting 5 people and I got 6. And what's interesting is because it was a beta group at that point, they were committed to 3 months. And at the end of the 3 months, one person left. Just it. That's it. Just one person. I have more people now, and I was like, isn't that interesting? That I was manifesting 5 and I got 6. And I was like, that is so awesome. But then one person left at the end of that 3 months, but everyone else is still there, right?
Yeah.
Like there's still that 5. And I was like, fascinating.
I love
Anyway,
you sharing that because I did something similar like that when I manifested my lake property. And our words are so powerful. And for you to be writing it out like that every day, and then today for you to be reading it out loud, I bet you'll find that supercharges it even more. And what I ended up doing was writing it out like you did, and then recording it, myself reading it out.
yeah.
So if you have a moment where, or morning where you can't sit down and do the exercise, then you just hit play and you listen to that. Or at the end of the day, you listen back to what we recorded in the morning and it's just affirming what you're wanting, what
Yeah.
you're feeling, the energy behind it. And yeah, that technique that you're doing can supercharge things.
One of your guests did that. She was an NLP person and she was talking about how she like rewired her subconscious by recording herself.
Yeah.
And I just never thought about recording myself. That
Yeah.
just seemed like bizarre. But I feel like wouldn't that work better than someone listening to someone else because you're listening to yourself, telling yourself
Yeah.
what to do, right?
I know it sounds weird. And honestly, the first few times I did it, it felt weird, but then it almost feels empowering. And I would listen to it and, oh, oh no, I want to add this. So then I would go and I would add into essentially my script of what I wanted and just kind of keep building out because listening to it, it gave me a different perspective on it too.
I'm sure. And you know what? My first business coach ever, he was helping me work through this I was very stuck around, like, I felt like I'd built my business into something that was never relaxed. It wasn't one of ease. I was always like, oh my gosh, I need to get back to this. The corporate habits had not died, right? It was like, I need to get back to this person right away. Oh my God. Oh my God. And he recorded this 6 minute, just like, you have plenty of time. Listen to it every morning. And there's a bunch of different stuff said in it, but I remember you have plenty of time. Nothing's urgent. Every morning. And I remember by week 6, I felt a shift. By week 8, I had completely changed. And it was just like nothing bothered me in my business anymore. I wasn't feeling that urgency. By week 10, I could stop listening to it. I think I started slowly weaning off of it.
Mhm.
But that was my first experience with recordings. And even just once a day, I listened to it once a day as soon as I sat down. Maybe that's similar to what I'm doing with the writing, like
Mhm.
every day. But that I felt like what's different because this was changing my subconscious. It was like a
Mhm.
subconscious rewiring. This is more like invoking
Yeah.
power to come, right? Or
Mhm.
invoking my own power with the universe.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I find so much power in that exercise that you're doing, and it's fun to hear when other people do it too, and you're seeing the results from it. And like you said, it puts an element of fun into your week. You're already looking forward to the clients that are going to
Yeah.
be coming into your life this week. You're in that expectation that they're coming because that's the
Yeah.
energetic frequency that you're putting out there.
It's insane. And it's always funny because I don't really talk about this much. This is probably one of the first podcasts I've ever really talked about this. And I was talking to my group last week. There was someone he was struggling. He's not getting a lot of bites, and we're trying different things. And you can see he's putting off that lack feeling almost.
Mhm.
And I told him, I don't talk about this stuff very often, but you want to come from a place of inspiration and not desperation. So you want to have flowing through you inspiration. And that stuck with him. And he was like, you're right. I'm coming from like a mopey, sulky place, he basically said, right? And I said, like, yeah. And that's when you put that off, somehow the universe knows. So come from a place of abundance, from inspiration. And it totally changed. And he's got so many things in the pot now, just from a week and a half. He was like, I haven't closed them yet, but at least I'm getting a lot of bites this week. And I was like,
Good.
and I've been trying to manifest for him too, actually, because, feels like my student. I want the best for him. I want him to succeed.
Yeah. And now that people are starting to come in, he's probably starting to believe that more,
I hope
feeling the
so.
more abundant frequency, and he'll be attracting
Yeah.
more that way too.
Yeah.
So for you, I know you've got your own podcast. You didn't wind up being a weather girl, but you managed to
No.
get your face out there regardless. I would love for you to share with the listeners what a taste in your world's like, your podcast and fun things that you have coming out.
Yeah. So if you are interested in freelancing and you want to know more about it, my podcast is bite-sized lessons, or like 10 to 20 minutes of how to freelance to be successful. It's called Freelance to Freedom. I'm the host, Kiri Mohan. Coming up, I think I'm doing a challenge in a few weeks on diversifying your marketing. I have my group program, which is $150 a week, and you can come and join and learn and have that kickoff call where we'll dissect your pricing structure. And if you want to really map out your income and understand how much money you need to make to match your corporate salary or even go beyond it, I have a money mapper, which Jen will link in the show notes. And that's just a plug and play worksheet where you just put in numbers, expenses, and you figure out, and it grows with you. It's really cool. So you start with, hey, it's just me. I'm going to put in these numbers, how much my expenses are, my income is, and then how much the taxes are going to take out. And that's what I'm left with. And that's what I can pay myself. The next tab is if you're a single income earner. But then we go into what if you want to hire contractors? How much do you have to make then? And then finally, the last tab, if you want to have a SEP IRA and open your own retirement account, how much is that going to take out as well of your paycheck? So how much do you have to actually be making when you have expenses and contractors and a SEP IRA in order to see the income that you want in your bank account?
That sounds fun and playful. One of my favorite wrap up questions, I can't let you get away without it. What is your biggest piece of advice for somebody to go out there and create a life of financial abundance?
I would say that You need to be obsessed with what you're doing. It needs to consume you. The people I've seen who succeed, I mean, you can manifest all day, but if you're not obsessed with your business and what you're doing and pushing every day to try to meet that, the manifestation is going to fall a little flat and probably won't work as well. Because when you're obsessed with your business and all your brain power is revolving around it and you're thinking about it all the time, that's not saying you're like forgetting your partner or your family or whatever, but there's something in you that's always kind of thinking about it. You're going to see success,
Mm,
because that's something that I've noticed is an underlying current between all my successful students versus the ones that aren't successful.
yeah, that's valid. I heard somebody once say, be like a dog with a bone. That is your one focus. You're going after that thing. You'll do anything to get that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much, Kiri, for joining me on the show today and having this fun conversation.
Great. I am so happy that I got to come here and share my story. And if you want to know more about me, kirimohan.com.
Perfect. Thanks. And like Kiri said, I will have all this linked in the show notes for you guys.